there's a lot going on, and we'll continue to obviously keep developing and rolling out additional products with the aim of being this financial super app. So just moving to our topic today, and before I get there, I'll just share my screen. All right. So moving to our topic today, which is on foreign exchange. So how does Revolut make foreign exchange faster and cheaper than traditional money changers? So again, just a question, open question for everyone. Just type your answers in the chat. Why do we exchange currencies? When you last exchanged money, what was it for? Any answers coming in? Traveling, purchase goods from a vendor that accepts another currency, travel, crypto. So yeah, I mean, the most common reasons, would be travel, would be e-commerce, where you need to pay in a different currency, would be sending money internationally, loading up crypto wallets, which only accept US dollars. So, all of those are, very common reasons to exchange money. And unfortunately, for all those things, you normally end up paying a fee to actually change that money. So, back when I was a uni student, I used to end up taking a lot of trips to Malaysia or Thailand, at least once every, 2-3 months. And before each trip, I would go down to one of these money exchange counters. There would always be rumors about which one has the best exchange rate. Sometimes it would be Mustafa, sometimes it would be Fortune Center. And you'd always see these big, colorful signs saying 0% commission, best exchange rate, lowest fees. So I would exchange my money for the trip. I would give my Sing dollars, take, Malaysian ringgit, and I would feel very happy that I got the best rate, and I would go on my trip and, have a great time. But it was only later that I realized that, I was actually paying 5 to 6% as hidden fees, which you don't know about at the time you're making the transaction. So, in all those trips, I probably ended up paying hundreds and thousands of dollars in just fees to exchange money at one of these counters. Then I thought I was getting a bit smarter. Instead of going to one of these counters, I got one of those fancy travel credit cards. You see all the big banks have these really fancy looking travel credit cards where they entice you with all these free miles. You get 10,000 miles when you sign up and pay the annual fee. You get 3 miles per dollar you spend. So I also, I thought, great, I'll go get one of these credit cards and collect a whole bunch of miles and get lots of free trips out of it. But what they don't tell you up front is that there's actually a whole bunch of fees to use these cards. Now, I've taken some snippets from the 3 most popular travel credit cards in Singapore, all offered by the largest local and international banks, and just want to draw your attention to some of their fees, which are hidden away on a fee page. So they actually convert. So just read what this says. Card transactions effected in US dollars will be converted to Singapore dollars. Transactions effected in foreign currencies other than US dollars will first be converted to Singapore dollars, except for Australian dollars. So it's just already the first 3 lines already so complicated, where they're converting one currency to another, but first converting it to a third currency. And in doing this, you already start losing out a little bit on the FX spread, which is charged. And then on top of that, they have these admin fees. So for this particular bank, there's a straight administrative fee of up to 3.25% for MasterCard and Visa and 3.3% for Amex. Here's another one where there's a 1% fee, and then there's also a 2.25% fee. So again, about 3.25. And there's a third one where there's 1% and then 2.5%. So, whichever card it is, whichever bank it is, for any foreign exchange transaction, you end up paying at least 3.5% just in fees. And I've had a terrible experience with this. So just last year, in fact, I was in the US, and I had gone there on a holiday. I was booking an Airbnb, and I thought, I'll use one of my travel cards. So I thought I'll use one of my travel cards. Now, so this Airbnb was, with a few friends, so it was quite a large amount. It was about $1,000. So I thought, I'm going to get a whole bunch of miles if I book this on my travel card, put in my card details, and I booked. Now, as soon as I booked, I realized I had done something incredibly stupid. I had booked the wrong dates. So I straight away, within 2 minutes, I canceled the transaction, was supposed to get the full refund. And when I checked my statement, it turned out I only got about $900. So I ended up losing $100. So when I called the bank to figure out what had happened, it was basically when I first swiped my card. So, Sing dollars got converted to US dollars, and I was charged that 3.5% exchange fee. And when the transaction was reversed, so when Airbnb sent back the $1,000, the bank again had to convert that to Singapore dollars. So I lost 3.5% there as well. And in those 2 minutes, the FX rate also moved a little bit. So I lost a little bit on that as well. So in effect, I ended up losing 10% of my transaction amount just because of these different FX fees which get charged onto any such transaction. So it's obviously really frustrating. I tried to complain and get some of that back, but these are the terms which you sign up for when you get one of these credit cards. So there's nothing which they can really do. So just whatever card you have, make sure you understand where you'll be charged, how you'll be charged, because you can end up losing, a decent amount of money for transactions like this. All right, so here's another thing which you should be mindful of when you're doing any exchange. What are the different rates being used? You'll see a lot of different terms. You'll see the bid rate, the ask rate, the buying rate, the selling rate, the mid-market rate, the interbank rate. So what are all these different rates? So the bid rate is basically the highest rate that someone is willing to buy the currency from you. And the ask rate is the lowest rate that they're willing to sell you the currency. So just moving back to this image here, where you see this foreign exchange rates. So if you just look at US dollar, now, what you can see is here, it's the selling and buying rate, right? So this is what the foreign exchange counter will be selling US dollars for. And this is the 1.27 is what they're buying US dollars for. So if you have Sing dollars and you want to exchange it for US dollars, if you give them, if you give them to get US dollars, you'll have to give them 1.334 Singapore dollars. But if you want to give them US dollars and get Sing dollars back, you'll only get 1.27 Sing dollars back. And that's the spread which really gets you, where even though it says 0% commission, you end up paying about 6% just based on that spread. So with $1, yeah, it won't really pinch you. But as the amounts get bigger, you start feeling that a little bit more. So if you have 130 Sing dollars, you can only exchange that for 100 US dollars. And when you give back the 100 US dollars, you'll only get 127 Sing dollars. So that's straight, $6 lost. So that's the bid and ask, which is this buying and selling rate. Then you have the mid-market rate. So the mid-market rate is the average of the bid and ask rate. And this is, when you just Google, one Sing dollar to US dollars, you'll just get one rate. That's probably this mid-market rate you're seeing, which is also called the interbank rate. Now, another way to explain the interbank rate is it's basically the value of any currency compared to any other currency. So for a currency, if you want to understand its value, it's always done comparatively to another currency. So US dollar, Sing dollar to US dollar is about 1.33, right? So that single rate you see is the interbank rate. Now, in most cases, consumers don't when they want to exchange money, they don't get that interbank rate. That interbank rate is normally reserved for, what the name means, interbank. So it's normally what big institutions exchange money from each other. For consumers, you typically get that rate plus a premium, which is essentially profit for the company that exchanges the money. However, Revolut does offer the interbank exchange rate. So if you want to exchange money through Revolut, if you have a Revolut account, you can actually exchange money at this interbank exchange rate with a few caveats involved. So Revolut offers different pricing plans. So there's the standard plan, which is free for everyone. And then there's the premium and metal plan, which are paid plans where you have to pay a monthly or an annual fee to get access to those plans. So for the standard plan, for all of these plans, you can exchange money at the interbank rate, but there's limits. So the standard plan has obviously the lowest limits, then premium, and for metal, it's unlimited. So if you have a metal plan, you can actually exchange as much money as you want at this rate. And then there's also a few currencies which are called exotic currencies. One example is the Ukrainian hryvnia, however you say that. Now, these currencies are not as liquid, so it's a bit tougher to actually make exchanges into these currencies. And therefore, there's a little bit of a premium charged for these exotic currencies. Okay, so now I'll just move to how we actually do this. And before I get into how we do this, I want to talk a little bit about the history of Revolut. So a little bit about our founders and why they built Revolut. We have two founders, Nick and Vlad. Both of them worked in the UK, and both of them used to work at large banks and financial institutions. And Nick is our CEO, and he used to travel a lot. So he would be traveling multiple times in a month. And he realized that he was paying a huge amount of money on fees. Wherever he was traveling, whether he was exchanging money, physically exchanging money, or using his credit or debit cards, he was being charged, up to 5-6%. And we're talking about 2013, 2014. So these fees were even higher back then than what they are now. So he basically was, he was frustrated that he was having to pay so much, and he decided that he wanted to start a multi-currency account with a multi-currency card, using which anyone could spend in any currency at the interbank rate. So, that was the thinking behind starting Revolut. And now obviously Revolut has grown tremendously since then. There's a whole bunch of products and features, but that ethos, that thought process has stayed the same, that we want to provide the lowest possible fees while maintaining full transparency on any fees which are being charged. So he didn't want any hidden fees. He wanted to be very upfront, very transparent with what customers were paying for, which back then when he was traveling, he didn't find that. So, and he didn't find it, so he just decided to build it. So just moving on to some of the exchange features available within the Revolut app. So you can spend in over 150 currencies at the interbank rate. So putting that in simple words, if you have 1,000 Singapore dollars in your Revolut account and you go to Vietnam, you can pay for your shopping, your food, using your Revolut card, and the app will just exchange your Sing dollar at the interbank rate. So there won't be any markups, there won't be any fees, none of this 3.5%, which all these travel credit cards charge you. You will just be able to exchange your Sing dollars to Vietnamese dong at the interbank rate. Another very cool feature is overseas ATM withdrawals. So say you end up going to a country where they don't accept, where you go to a vendor who doesn't accept a credit or a debit card. Now, normally you would have to go to an ATM, withdraw some money, and you would again be charged a ridiculous fee, up to 2.53% of the amount just to withdraw your own money. So with Revolut, again, you can withdraw at overseas ATMs, again, up to limits which are offered in your respective plans without any fee. So, you save on the exchange, you save on ATM withdrawal fees. And it's just a great way to, for not just for travel, but for anything where you want to exchange fees to use Revolut. The third feature I want to just talk about is you can actually exchange money and hold it in whichever currency you exchange in the app itself. So we currently offer about 28 different currencies which you can convert to and hold those currencies in the app. So again, think of if you're planning a trip 2 months later to Japan, and you think the current Singapore dollar to Japanese yen exchange rate is very favorable. So you can actually start exchanging your Sing dollars right now and keep the Japanese yen in your Revolut account. And then 2 months later, when you go to Japan, when you swipe your Revolut card anywhere, the money will get deducted from your Japanese yen, which you have in your account, not from your Singapore dollars. So, you can take advantage of favorable FX rates this way. You can use this to, potentially budget out your overseas spend. So you set aside, say, 5,000, 5,000 yen might not be that much, but say you set aside $1,000 worth of yen, you've exchanged that already. And then when you go there, you can try and budget to only, spending that amount of money. So there's just some very useful features which reduce the amount of fees you pay, as well as make your life super convenient in terms of managing how you're spending your money. So just, there's one other thing, which again, when you exchange money, you typically use that also when you're sending money internationally. So if you look at this screenshot on the left of the screen, you're sending a payment to Malaysia. So when you key in the amount you want to send, you get to see exactly what the exchange rate is. And you won't see that spread, so you won't see that bid and ask and buying and selling rate. You'll see one rate, which is the interbank rate, which is being charged. So you'll be able to see how much is being exchanged. So for $48, you're getting 150 ringgit. If there is any fees, you'll be able to see that fees. So fees could be because you've exchanged more than your plan limit allows. It could be for exotic currencies. So whatever the fees is, you'll see that in the app before you confirm you want to send the money. And then, there'll also be a little icon next to the fee. So if you look at this screenshot here, where it says next to fees, you have this little info button. So if you click that, it'll tell you what that fee is for. So it'll be very clear. Okay, this is an exotic currency. That's why we're charging you a fee. So there's a lot of transparency around what the exact amount you're paying, the exact amount you're converting, and the exact amount you're getting from that conversion. So again, in these other screenshots, you can see there's no hidden fees. You get the best exchange rate. So there's just some very great features within the Revolut app for exchanging money. Okay, so I've spoken now a lot about the features, why there's no fees, why there's all this transparency. So now we finally come down to the question of how can we do this? How can we do all these exchanges at such a low cost? How are we doing this, cheaper than other banks do this, cheaper than some of the other financial institutions do this? So there's two main reasons as to why we are able to do this. One is we have significantly lower costs. And two is the way we function, this may sound a bit counterintuitive, but there's economies of scale in the way we process and in the way we function. So when it comes to lower cost, again, there's two main aspects of this. First is we don't have any legacy infrastructure. We don't have, and legacy infrastructure, again, can be split into two main things. One is the physical branches, the physical offices. So when you compare Revolut to any of the big banks, these big banks have a lot of branches, they've got a lot of real estate, a lot of office space, and all of that takes a lot of money to actually run. So they have very high overhead costs stemming out of all these physical locations, physical branches. And that cost needs to get passed on somehow. So that cost is the reason why these banks need to charge these hidden fees, need to mark up a lot of their products, need to have these spreads so that they can recoup some of those costs which they incur. For Revolut, we don't have that. We have an extremely lean organization. We try and minimize our overhead costs. And as a result of that, we don't need to pass on those costs to our customers. So we can offer all these fee-free products. We can offer the best exchange rates simply because we don't want to rely on these markups as a way to earn money and earn revenue. So that's one reason. The second reason is, again, legacy infrastructure in terms of the technology and the systems being used. So again, going back to some of the big banks, they have a whole bunch of different systems being used in different countries. Different teams use different systems. Within the same sort of team, they'll be using different versions of the system. So it's very clunky. Some of these systems will be 10, 20 years old. So it's very clunky. It's not the most efficient means of processing. Sometimes they struggle with integrating different flows. And again, because of all of that, it makes them slower to adapt to changes, slower to get new technology where they can make these transactions more efficient, faster. Whereas Revolut, we were only founded in 5-6 years ago. So not only are we using the latest technology, but we also use the same technology stack across all our markets where we are. So we're currently in about 40 markets, and we use the same technology across all these markets, which makes it very easy for us to scale up, to be efficient in our processes. So these are the main reasons why we have lower cost. The other one, which I was mentioning, was economies of scale. So again, how banks, how some of these bigger banks function is that they might be in 80, 100 different countries, but each country acts as its own individual unit. With Revolut, we've tried to really streamline, and all our 40 countries, we act for certain processes as one unit. So not only does that allow us to get these economies of scale, we can pool our FX conversion, so as a result, we get the best rates. So there's really, these two main things which allow us to get the best rates, these economies of scale. And then we also get these best rates and make these transactions and processes at a significantly lower cost because we don't have that legacy infrastructure. And as a result, we don't need to have these markups and these charges, which a lot of the other banks do, and they try and slide them in, at the bottom of your T's and C's and hidden away in some fee page, so that it isn't transparent, so that it isn't, very clear to their customers what they're paying. And, it's almost, so they compare themselves, or maybe compare themselves is not the correct term, but a few years back, so when I was in uni, we would go to these physical money exchange counters, and you end up paying about 5-6% with that spread. With banks, with these credit cards, it's come down to 3.5%. So while it's positioned as get the best rates, I think that point of reference, who you're comparing those rates to, is very important. So the 3.5% is still a significant amount. Whereas now, with Revolut, you get that interbank rate. So you're not paying to essentially withdraw your own money. You're not paying to transfer or exchange your own money. And so that's just one of the key advantages in using Revolut. you don't get any of those hidden fees and markups. Okay, at this point, just want to take stock of the time. We still have some time. So before we'll obviously leave some time at the end for questions. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about these different subscription plans which we have. So I mentioned we have the standard, we have premium and metal. And with these, so standard is free, premium and metal, you need to pay a monthly amount, monthly or annual amount. Now, we actually have a little quiz where we will be giving out 3 metal subscriptions for free, annual subscriptions. So if you quickly, just scan this QR code, answer the short quiz, we'll be picking 3 winners from everyone who submits the correct answers and submits the quiz, and you'll get a metal subscription worth 199. So just quickly do that. And once that's done, we can also move to questions. So Gwen, I'll at this point pass it back to you. Do we want to do questions in the chat itself, or do we, how should we do the questions? Gwen, are you there?
Hi, yeah.
So yeah, we can start taking questions. So you have until midnight to complete this. So maybe just scan the QR code, and you can then complete the quiz later on in the day. And we can now, if you have any questions about any of Revolut's products and features, you have questions about what it's like working at Revolut, I'm happy to spend some time answering all those questions as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Arjun, for the very insightful workshop. So we can now move on to the Q&A section. Feel free to ask your questions. And yeah, so we've received some already. All right, so the first question is, some fintechs charge a fee when you request for a card. Does Revolut charge a fee when we order a card?
No, so Revolut doesn't have a fee when you order your first card. If you're ordering replacement cards, you want additional cards, then there is a small fee for those. So same with, and that fee again depends on the type of card you're ordering. So if it's a metal card, there is a slightly higher charge for those. But if it's just a standard card, then the fee for that is much lower. But the first card is free. So there's no charge for your initial card. Okay.
All right. So so just to confirm, so if you lose your card and you want to replace it, there will be a fee.
Yeah. So to get replacement cards, there is a fee.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So the next question is, will Revolut be launching a bank in Singapore soon?
So Revolut in Singapore is positioning itself as a financial super app. So you'll be able to do, a lot of the things you do normally. So you can do your daily spending. It's obviously a great travel card. We'll soon be launching stock trading and commodities. We are going to, in the future, launch crypto as well. So there's all these different products which you can do on Revolut. And in fact, you can't do some of these with banks. So I think, I wouldn't say that Revolut is launching a bank, but I will say that Revolut is building a financial super app, which has certain features which even some of the banks in Singapore don't have.
Okay. And the next question we have is, how does Revolut differentiate itself from Crypto.com?
So again, I think there's quite a few differences. It's, we're going the way of a financial super app where you can do so much more than just crypto. Crypto.com is obviously, as the name suggests, much more focused on on crypto. So I think there's a huge difference. We have a great product for your daily spending, rewards. For travel, you can remit money internationally at some of the lowest rates. You can so there's all these other features, and that's our positioning, that we want Revolut to be the only financial app you need.
Okay, got it. And on the topic of fees for the cards, we have a question asking, is there a fee for virtual disposable cards, or is there a limit to how many virtual disposable cards a user can use?
So there's no fee. So you can generate a virtual disposable card within the app, and you typically use these for one transaction, and then you can't use that same card number anymore. And then so you generate another one then. In terms of limits, I think you can check that on the Revolut website based on what plan you have. So I don't want to give an incorrect limit, but just check that we can check that on the website. Those details will be there. But there's no fee to generate a virtual disposable card.
All right. So on to our next question. Who would you say is the target audience for Revolut?
So, normally when people think of Revolut, they think, okay, it's fintech app, it's going to be for a younger audience, but I don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's for anyone who wants to. All these products I mentioned, it's for anyone who wants the best rate, the lowest fees. Anyone who wants an extremely efficient app, very easy to use user interface. So it's definitely, people who travel a lot will find a lot of use for it. People who remit money, they'll get the best, the lowest fees, the best exchange rates to send money overseas. So I think it's a very broad target audience. And as we launch new products and new features, we launched trading and commodities in the next few months. It's for people who want to invest in those markets, understand those markets. So I think that's what separates Revolut from a lot of the other competitors in the market, that it's got something for everyone. And we're rolling out products which don't just target like one small segment of the market, but it's for people in all these different segments, for travel, for remittance, for your daily spend. We have some really good cashback rewards going on, where if you use your Revolut card on public transport, you get 10%, 20% of that back. If you use your Revolut card at 7-Elevens, you get some cash back there. So it's great for daily spend as well. And then as we launch, trading, commodities, and crypto, which we're again hoping to launch later this year, it's for investors. It's for people who want to invest in crypto. So I think it's quite a broad target audience.
Okay. And on the topic of comparison with other competitors, how does Revolut compare themselves against other cross-border payment apps such as TransferWise or Utrip?
So again, that's there are now quite a few competitors who are trying to get rid of all these fees which a lot of the banks charge. So we've done a few obviously comparisons against the rates which we provide versus TransferWise. We've looked at the fees. So I think while it's comparable, there are still advantages which Revolut has. Things like being able to hold 28 different currencies within the app itself. Things like spending, using the Revolut card to spend in over 150 different currencies. So while yeah, in terms of all these competitors have really helped the overall fees in the industry to go down when it comes to remittance, when it comes to exchange. I think when you just look at the product a little bit more holistically, there's still certain advantages you get from Revolut, which some of these other competitors don't have.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, how does Revolut reduce fraud from the usage of these disposable cards that we previously talked about?
So these disposable cards are great for reducing fraud, because you use them one time and then you can't use the same card number, the card details again. So say you go onto a website which may not be the most secure website, and you want to make a transaction. So if you put in your disposable card details, you complete your transaction, then even if that website, say, stores those card details, or someone steals those card details from that website, it'll be useless to them because it's a one-time use card. So once you've used those disposable card details, you can't use those details again. So it's actually great for preventing fraud. It's if anyone steals those card details, you don't have anything to be worried about, basically.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So the next question we have is, will Revolut offer crypto exchanges on its app for Singapore?
Yeah, that's the plan. So that is something we're working towards. So keep an eye on, in the next few months. We'll obviously try and make some announcements about that, but while obviously working with MES to make sure everything is in order. So, but that is something which we are planning and hoping to have soon in Singapore.
Okay, so back to the topic of the Revolut card again. How does the Revolut card stack up compared to other cards? Are its rewards, cashback, and fees more competitive?
So yeah, I would say there's a few huge benefits you get. So in terms of cashback, right? I mentioned we constantly run campaigns. So currently we have a 20% cashback on public transport spend. So if you use Revolut for public transport, you can get up to 20% of that, back at the end of the month. We have 20% cashback on 7-Eleven spend. So any transactions made at 7-Elevens, you'll get 20% back at the end of the month. So I think there are these campaigns which are really great in terms of the amount of cashback you can get. We also have our metal card. So if you have a metal card, you get 1% cashback on all your transactions. So this, I think, is again just a huge cashback, which is different from a lot of our competitors, where you only get cashback on certain types of spend. So with the Revolut metal card, you get 1% of everything you spend on that card back, which is really great. In terms of the fees, so for a standard account, it's a free account to get. You have, I think, adequate limits in terms of how much money you can exchange without any fees. You can withdraw on overseas ATMs without any fees. There's certain amount of transfers without any fees. So we have some of the lowest fees out there. And even once you hit your limit, it's not like suddenly you'll be hit with a 10% fee. It doesn't work like that. We don't want to sort of be manipulative in how we charge these fees. So it'll be very clear and transparent. It's still some of the lowest fees. So even once you go above your limit, it'll still be like a 0.5% fee for something. So it's still very low and very competitive fees, even after you've hit your limits in your plans.
Okay, that sounds really good. And actually, a lot of our attendees are wondering, are there internship opportunities at Revolut?
So keep a lookout on the Revolut careers page. I think whatever opportunities which come up, and Revolut, because it's growing so fast, it is looking to hire aggressively, not just in Singapore, but this is globally. So I would say keep a lookout on that page, and if there are any opportunities, they'll be posted on the Revolut careers page.
Okay. How how is Revolut operating differently in Southeast Asia as compared to operating in other regions?
So each region, we have a different strategy based on the regulatory requirements present in that region. So, for example, in Europe, Revolut has a full banking license, but in Singapore, we've decided there are other ways where we can provide these services without having a full banking license. So it really depends on the regulations. Like in Singapore, there's a lot of different licenses we can get. So we have a major payments license. We have a CMS license, which allows us to offer trading. So the strategy really depends and differs region to region based on the regulatory requirements and the licensing requirements in every country.
All right. Maybe we will answer a few questions before wrapping up. So, yeah, someone has asked, Utrip doesn't allow users to exchange their foreign currencies back to Sing dollars. Does Revolut do so? Like allow this?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you exchanged money, you're holding one of those 28 different currencies, you are allowed to hold money within the app itself. You can, at any time, you can change that back into Sing dollars. We don't have restrictions on which currency you can not change back into. So again, I also see a Revolut versus Utrip. So that's one point in favor of Revolut, clearly.
Okay, I think that's all the questions that the attendees have. So thanks everyone for tuning into today's workshop. The NUS Fintech Month is proud to be partnered with Revolut, and we look forward to working with them in the future as well. If you haven't already registered for our other workshops, feel free to do so. And once again, on behalf of NUS Fintech Society, have a nice day and see you tonight for the workshop on token market making with Alpha Lab Capital.
Great, thanks, Gwen. And last chance for anyone to scan the QR code, which is still up. All right, thanks everyone.
Arjun, I think someone has asked about the Revolut quiz in the chat. Are you able to see the chat?
Yeah. So you've just straight asked me the question, but yeah, so it is, Revolut does offer the interbank rate, which is why we have some of the best exchange rates available from any of the competitors in the market. So I've answered one of your questions now. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Arjun.